This
you tell me
conference will now be recorded.
how I get back in?
This conference will now be recorded.
And Chuck, just before we have a roll call, after roll call, I do need to just make some statements, so it's appropriate for us to be attending virtually. Go ahead with the roll call.
Cook?
Here.
Emmert?
Yes.
Eubank?
Yes.
Koenig?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Madeira?
Yes.
Van Tickle?
Here.
Okay. The first thing is we did post a 48-hour notice as provided by statute. We've also have everyone that's attending can hear each other or see each other or both. We also have nobody present at the village hall except for me, which is a requirement that we have at least one person in the public body be present at the location it's at. The other ones may attend then remotely. We are not having the public available at the location because we cannot do it due to space requirements. But they did have the ability to come into the meeting as it's posted on the agenda. And we are recording this as required. So Chuck, I just wanted to get that in there so we know that we're compliant. So go ahead and begin the meeting. Oh, the other thing, Chuck, is any vote we take must be by roll call now.
All right. Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
The first item on the agenda tonight are a couple of zoning board meeting minutes. I believe you've all received them, and I hope have reviewed them. We'll first ask for your comments on the public hearing meeting of June 22nd, 2020 minutes.
I'd make a motion for approving of the public hearing minutes from June 22nd, 2020. That's Frank Eubank.
Can we have a roll call?
Cook?
Yes.
Emmert?
Yes.
Eubank?
Yes.
Koenig?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Madeira?
Yes.
Van Tickle?
Yes. The next minutes that we have are from the regular zoning board meeting of June 22nd, 2020. We have a motion to either review these or approve them.
Make a motion to approve, Frank Eubank.
Second.
There's a second. Roll call, please.
First, who was the second on that, please?
Dennis.
Oh, thank you. Cook?
Yes.
Emmert?
Yes.
Eubank?
Yes.
Koenig?
Yes.
McDougall?
Yes.
Madeira?
Yes.
And Van Tickle?
Yes. Is there any conflict of interest tonight?
No.
Okay. No one has signed up for public comment. Next item on our agenda is the application for a zoning change that we've been working with Jason. His engineers, Arc Design, have sent all new and modified documents. First of all, they modified and corrected the drainage study. And this has been through Seth, and everything is in good shape there. And then you've all received the building plans and the review letter on the 19th of this month. The review letter that they sent is in response to the original 10 articles that our engineer, Seth Grunewald, gave to us last week, or last meeting, that is. Have you all received this and reviewed it? We can go through the response letter if you'd like, as I think we probably should, and compare them to what Seth has originally pointed out to us. When he originally gave us the list of 10 items, which was on Monday, June 22nd, his first item was that blacktop or concrete should be used for driveway access or on the site. And if you remember, we discussed this a little bit last time, and Chad had said that he could approve the use of milled blacktop for this item, or what they call recycled asphalt. And this is what Arc Design has come back with their Article 1 and answer that, yes, yeah, they agree, and they just made some comments on the drainage and so forth there. All right. Is there any questions on that item?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Item 2, a minimum of 3 parking stalls should be provided. And since there's 50 storage units, there should be 4 parking stalls. I had discussion with Jason concerning him, and I told him that the UDO provides for off-site parking also, and they have in the plans that they sent us, the building plans, they have shown 4 parking stalls immediately adjacent to the southeast corner of this property, on property that is owned by Jason. I don't see that this is a problem, but I'd like to have some discussion or actually approval from the board saying that we can agree to this off-site parking.
I guess my position is if there is parking by the same owner, that's fine until possibly one or the other parcel is sold, then you may not have the ability to use parking for that facility. So would that change anybody's mind if it was no longer that parking is accessible next door? Otherwise, I don't have an issue.
I guess I have the same issue, but do they really, could we give a exception to that, given what, you know, for this particular use, with a special permit use, do you really need off-site parking for a storage facility? Because you're going to park right in front of your unit, aren't you?
Right. The only, and then Bill, that's a good point. My thought about that is the reason why you'd have parking is if there is an office on site. You want parking for an employee and or a user, a tenant, to be able to stop and park in front of the office. But if there isn't an office, then, right, there is really no need to have parking other than parking in front of your unit. Doesn't look like in the drawings that there's an office there on site.
You say there is or is not?
It's not, it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just storage buildings and that's it. And Jason,
That is correct.
you just verify that?
Yes, that is correct. There will be no office on site.
So then, Bill, maybe your thought is that we could just have that exempt or accept it out.
That takes away the issue of if one of the parcels is sold, then what do we do?
Right.
So if they're going to
I
use
agree.
it, go ahead.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, we're going to be changing, or the village is going to be changing it from two-family to business. And we have to, again, even though we don't look specifically at this business, the restrictions go towards this business. I mean, if we make it business, they can put any type of business in there eventually. If they want to put the storage in there, then we can put these special use restrictions. And so is there some way we can incorporate this exemption into the special use restrictions, Mary? And is what I'm saying correct, that the village changes it to business, it can be used for any business use. And if it was a different business use, I don't think that it should be exempt necessarily from the UDO. But if it's actually going to be used for the storage, it makes sense to me. So can that be like a, somehow put into the restrictions that we can put on their use for a storage facility?
Correct. And I'm putting arrows by the ones that I'm going to need to add.
Okay. And then I guess we're going to do that. Are we going to have a meeting after this to go through all of the restrictions so we all agree on the wording of the restrictions and what the restrictions are before it's sent to the village board? Because
That's what we would have. That's what we should do.
Done here.
That makes sense.
Yes.
And for the people who just, showed up, I had, prior to the last meeting, started to make some revisions to what Mary sent out as a rough draft. And then when we got into all those other issues,
attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
excuse me for a second.
Your mother is attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
Oh,
Just have her join the meeting, Bill.
On your cellular device. Your mother is attempting to reach you.
she's in a nursing home. I'm going to have to come back.
Okay, no problem.
Are we agreed then that we will not require the parking place?
Right.
So I guess we have to think too, do we want to put it, now think about this, but is it going to be as a condition of a special use permit or giving a variance as to that issue? Because I think there are a couple other things where we're going to be giving a variance, so that might make a little bit more sense.
I agree with the variance. We got a couple more to do also. Do we need to take a roll call on this particular matter?
Well, do you want to just wait till we discuss them all and then see if people are in favor of a variance as to all of them, or do you want it voted on individually? It doesn't really matter.
Chuck, this is Frank. My thought is if we could get just a consensus, if everyone's agreeable, we don't have to really take a formal vote right now. But if anyone's opposed to it, and then we can vote on it when we read through everything, we can vote on it all at once, maybe at the next meeting.
Is there anyone that's opposed to this idea?
No.
Okay, let's continue then. The next item, let's see.
And Bill, just since you were gone and came back, we've agreed that maybe it would be a variance that we would use for that particular thing, since you're going to be likely to get other variances. And then, as you mentioned, we would come back on another day, have read through everything, and then likely vote on everything at one time.
Okay.
The next item from Seth's list was that one-way traffic would be required, and this has been agreed to by Jason and Arc Design. The only thing I would think that we should do is stipulate as part of our items that we include that the village require that the traffic enter from Swift Street, travel north, and exit on Main Street. This would help with protecting the neighborhood from lights also. Okay, then his next item.
Okay, can we discuss that a little bit? I like the idea, but can we enforce it? Now, they'd be coming in from Swift Street, then what, they turn left into one entryway, or they go past one, they turn left again?
No, they go
Into
in
the
one entryway and go right through. It's just as they decide, on the plans they sent us, you can see the arrows on the pavement.
But the
And again,
plans
I think
also
that's
state off from Swift, it looks like it's two-way traffic.
That's their initial plan, but I don't believe it allows 2 feet across, so now we have to change that to a one-way.
Well, the one I'm looking at, there's an arrow pointing in off of Swift Street and an arrow pointing out off of onto Main Street.
Right, and so
Yep.
our UDO requires a minimum of 22 feet. And if they have 22 feet, they can do that, but I'm not sure they have 22 feet to be able to do that.
They don't have 22 feet. It has to be a one-way.
Correct, according to our UDO. It has to be a
Exactly.
one-way. So it'd be one way heading east, and then the last lane going from west to east, the first lane and the third lane that would head north, the second lane would head south. I believe that's how.
No, they're all going north.
Oh, they all are. Oh, okay.
It's a perfect thing because then any light flashing would be over at the mill and there's no problem with the neighbors.
No, I agree with the idea, Chuck. It's just the enforceability of it. Should we, does the village need an agreement with a separate agreement with the Ackermans to enforce traffic regulations on this lot to really make it enforceable? I know the county has that ability with mobile home parks and malls and such. But if the village can't enforce it through its traffic enforcement, I don't like putting restrictions on something that we can't enforce. If somebody starts coming in the wrong way, how's the village going to stop it? If the village can't stop it, I don't like the idea of making it a requirement that you're not going to enforce. So I would like to look at a way to make it enforceable. I think it's a good idea.
And you're absolutely correct, Bill. There would have to be an agreement with the property owner because it's on private property. Just like we have an agreement with the school for enforcing traffic laws on their property.
So Jason,
So I guess we'd have to, we'd make that a restriction in the special use permit. I guess that they would have to enter into such an agreement with the village or somehow make them responsible. I don't know that it's really fair to make the Ackermans responsible because they're not going to be there when somebody shows up at 10 at night.
Right.
So Jason and
We can
Teresa,
make them put signage and stuff up. But I guess I'd like an agreement on their part if there is a similar thing in the village, in the municipal code, which allows somebody to grant the village authority to enforce traffic regulations on private property. And if there are, then we'd have to have the proper signage, and then we can enforce it.
right? And
I'm
for the-
sure you would agree with that, wouldn't you, Jason?
Yeah, we both are shaking our heads. Yes, I believe signage is the better way. You know, we talked a little bit about pavement markings. Well, that's mentioned in there in his response that won't work anyway. So I believe signage is a much better way to go. Yes.
So I guess I'm looking to Mary. Is that something that is legally enforceable if we have an agreement with them? Is there authority to do this?
Yeah, we did it. We do it with certain things with Clayton Courts. So
Okay,
I think we
so
can
then we'd have,
around it.
okay, then we'd have to have the signs meet the vehicle code and everything. Again, I just want it enforceable if we're gonna say it's a regulation.
Can I ask a question? Would it be something, because I think we're going to have a storage contract for this. Would that be something that in any way could be in that, and that way people have a copy all the time, they've signed something or whatever? Does that help at all?
That'd be helpful to say that they're subject to this agreement between you, the property owner.
Right.
and the village. If they violate that, then you can terminate their lease if you want.
Right.
That can be something you can contractually, look at with a tenant, but for our purposes, we're looking at an agreement from the two of you as property owners with the village to allow our police department to issue a ticket for a vehicle that's violating the traffic.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah.
at the school where they have the one ways, especially at the middle school when you go in one way, the vehicles coming the opposite way, our police department has the authority to ticket that
Sure.
driver. In fact, we have ticketed drivers going the wrong way in the middle school parking lot.
Sure, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yep. So that's what Bill is talking about, and Mary, has confirmed that we've done it with other private property owners. So you wouldn't have to take any other action once that's signed. You don't have to enforce it. The village could enforce it then.
Perfect.
So if it becomes a problem, the police could watch for it.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, are we agreed on this?
I believe so.
All
Does
right.
anybody disagree?
No.
Go ahead, Chuck.
All right, next item was landscaping, and I have communication from Chad saying that because of the utilities on the Main Street, it's no way that anything could be put in the public right of way. And so he would suggest that we give him a variance and not have any landscaping with the project.
Well, how about on the south end?
Well, I think it would be a good idea to do what we could do there. Because that would be by the sign that's going to be going up.
Well, yeah.
And I
If
think
it's impractical on the north side, that I don't know that we should exempt it from the entire lot. That's
Well,
just
that's
my
our choice.
thought off the top of my head.
In Mary's little notes that she gave us last time, some of the ideas, she suggested that there be some landscaping around the sign also.
Jason and Teresa, do you have any plans to have some type of landscaping along the south end. That's where the initial drive-in would be.
Just at the drive, you mean? Because the fence will be all along, it's going to be gravel right to the fence along that south side.
And then where the fence is going in, do you have room on the south side of the fence between your property line and the neighbors, or is the fence pretty close to the property line?
Chuck, doesn't it have to be off of their line?
Yeah,
3 feet.
Yeah,
The
3 feet.
only place you'd probably have room for landscaping would be on either end of the sign.
Sign like on the at the road.
I'm sorry, either end of the fence.
Oh, yeah. Correct.
There wouldn't be room along the entire length of the fence on the south side?
No,
No,
because you're
that-
going to
that
have
was-
you're going to have the entrance drive on the north side of the fence, and the neighbor's fence is immediately on the other side of it.
Well, how much space would there be between the Ackerman's fence and the Sitton's fence?
I have no
Assuming-
idea.
It's supposed to be a minimum 3 feet. Unless you have a notarized signature from the adjoining neighbors, it's got to be 3 feet off the property line.
So if that's a requirement, that'd be 6 feet, right?
Correct.
Would the Sittons have to be 3
But-
and Ackerman's 3?
No,
Right, unless
if
there's
the Sittons currently have a fence, which was probably put up long before the village ever wrote their
Okay.
fence ordinance.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay.
property line, I believe.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be. It doesn't have to be 3 foot, Bill. But because Sittons, I'm sure would sign to have it come closer than that if it needs to be. But I can't see any reason to have any landscaping behind the sign, if you will.
Maybe behind the fence?
Yeah,
you talking
I keep saying sign, but behind the 6 foot high fence, why would you put it behind it? Couldn't see it.
Well, except for the Sittons. I'm thinking somebody puts a fence up. We're in a business area now. They don't maintain what's behind that fence. I'm on the south side of that fence. I have to live with that eyesore. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Are we going to be making an area that'll just grow in weeds and not be able to be maintained? Because we are letting business abut residential, and I want to protect the residential interests that I'm letting the business now abut. So would there be room for the Ackermans to go ahead and maintain whatever property they have there? The Sittons would be responsible for their own, but the Sittons could not maintain what the Ackermans have south of the fence. So I guess if the fence was on the lot line, it wouldn't be an issue. The Sittons could go ahead and maintain the whole thing. But if they're 3 feet off, now there's 3 feet between the Sittons property and the fence that the Sittons can't maintain. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to figure out. How could we address that so the Sittons don't have just weeds growing in this 3 foot area in the back of their, just to the north of the back of their yard?
Well, I don't see any reason it can't be right at the lot line.
If it was at the lot line, then that to me makes more sense than the Sittons can maintain everything that they want to south of the fence. Because the fence would be on the lot line.
I'm pretty sure that Mr. Sutton would agree to have it right at the lot line.
You do understand that I believe their chain link fence is the lot line from our measurements. So we'd be butting up against their fence, you mean? Is that, I just wanted to clarify.
That's what we're talking about, yes.
Okay.
Problem with
Okay.
that is if you need to maintain the south side of that fence, you need to make sure that you have permission to go on the other person's property so you can maintain it. Otherwise, you need to come in off of the lot line so you can maintain your side of the fence if you need to paint it or whatever you need to do. That's why
And
we
if
have
it's
that 3-foot area so that you can maintain your side of the fence onto the property owner next to you.
So that's just an issue I see. I just like to, bring it up and how do we address that? I would hate to be a year down the road and we got this area that can't be maintained in a practical manner.
I think that'd have to be worked out with Sittons whether they could give you permission to be on their land or not, and I'm not sure they would. Then you'd have to have the 3 foot.
But
I think
doesn't that also apply to the Sittons if they're on their lot? If the Sittons are already on their own lot line, how are they going to maintain their fence?
Well, if they have a chain link fence, it's a little easier to maintain it than if it's a wooden fence. But they're not in violation of the current ordinance because obviously they had their fence up before the ordinance was passed.
I understand that, but still, they're then, for one side of their fence, they're having to go onto the Ackerman's property to maintain it. If there's,
No,
would they not? No?
it's
You
a
can
chain
maintain
link
on-
fence.
Right, you can maintain on your own side a chain link fence. The problem is if they had a wooden fence and they had paint it on the other side, then you have to get on the other side to paint it. And that's where you have the issue.
So you don't see anything that ever would have to be done on that side of a chain link fence?
Not really,
Where they spray
Only thing-
paint it or something? Okay.
no.
Only thing they do with a chain link fence, if it wears out, is they take it down, put a new one up.
How do they maintain?
Weed whack the bottom.
Mhm.
Best
do you
case
make-
scenario would be if the Sittons would take their chain link fence down on the back end of their property and just let Jason build right on the lot line with his.
I mean, that would be an option. I mean,
That still doesn't that doesn't give Jason permission to get on their land to maintain it.
like they'd have to have some agreement between them to allow them access to that side to maintain it, which could be a lot more work. So Jason and Teresa, do you know the distance of the south edge of the gravel drive to the fence that Sittons have? Do you know how far
Yeah.
that is?
Well, I know I'm driving down it now because there's overgrowth there. There's probably 3 feet there now. So
Okay.
I'm not against having the 3 feet, and I'll just have to maintain down in there, I guess. However, I've been thinking of this because I knew it had to be 3 feet off.
Mhm.
My Bobcat fits down a 3-foot area. I've been thinking of ways I could maintain that.
So then what Bill was saying before is if you've got a 3-foot area between where your fence is and where the lot line is, is there an opportunity to put landscaping, I guess, on that side? Is that what you're thinking, Bill, to have something so it's not, what looks nicer?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is that something that we want to require since we're letting the business get in there and build a fence?
If you
I'm
put
just throwing it out.
in the fence,
I didn't understand you, Randy.
if you put landscaping there, how does he maintain the fence?
Well, I would,
How does he get there? If there's landscaping there, how does he get in there to maintain the fence?
well, it depends what type of landscaping you have in there. You could have junipers where you can still walk between the juniper and the fence and take care of your fence. You could have flowers, you could have whatever you're gonna have, plants in there, and you might still be able to walk in there. So to me, that's something that.
Put in there to maintain the fence, how do you do it? You don't.
And is 3 feet enough? Is that what the PDU requires, Mary? The other ordinances?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I believe that's what Mr. Maderis also indicated.
And is this a circumstance where maybe there should be a requirement of more space? I don't know, I'm just throwing out ideas, anticipating a possible problem.
You just eliminate the landscaping and have the fence. And he can get in there and maintain it.
I mean, that would be, if it's just grass that's there, part of the issue is you want landscaping to inhibit some of the water runoff when it rains. And if there's grass there, that's better than having any type of asphalt there or concrete. So as long as there's grass and he can maintain it, I don't see a problem with not having any landscaping on the property.
So there'd be a restriction that it has to be seeded or sodded, it has to be grass. It just can't be gravel.
And Jason or Teresa, is there any grass right there?
Oh, I can't hear you there.
Is there gravel, where you would put up the fence, from the fence to the Sittons fence, you said there's about 3 feet of your property. Would that be gravel right now, or is that grass or a combination?
Yeah, it's great. There's some grass there. I don't think it's 3 feet, but yeah.
Okay.
That wouldn't be a problem. We can get some kind of push mower to go in there with, and maybe that's the best solution.
And if you want to make that enforceable, that's going to have to be something in your restrictions, that there be grass or something if it's not landscaping on the south side.
Yeah, I would agree with that, that if the fence is up and then instead of landscaping, they have grass on the south side.
I got it.
Okay, basically, the rest of the items that Seth had given us talk about IDOT connections, saw cuts in the roadways, slopes on the height of the buildings. Art Design has raised the building heights, how high they're built, or how high they're raised up, and lighting, and we've had much discussions on lighting. I think that's all been discussed. So basically, Jason and Art Design have basically come into agreement with everything that our people have asked for, and the only variances would be, of course, is the recycled asphalt and this landscaping.
Well, landscaping wouldn't be a variance, it'd be a restriction. And I'm thinking, don't we need a restriction on the topography heights, Mary? If a business designation would allow something else, then to make it enforceable that if they're going to put in their storage unit, it has to meet 1, 2, 3, 4 requirements, and one of them would be the topography that they're suggesting.
Correct.
Because without that, it wouldn't be enforceable. You know, they could say they're going to do it, somebody else buys it, now they can do it. They don't have to live by what the Ackermans verbally agreed to. So to protect that requirement, I think it needs to be part of the restrictions. Is that correct? You agree?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
That sounds right.
That's why I wanted the one-way designation in there also, because it's shown on the drawings, but it should be in the ordinance in case Jason sells it or something.
Right. And then plus it's now it'd be enforceable with the agreement with the village. So you're covered there, I think, Chuck.
That sounds good. I like that. Well, I think that's all that I have to offer. I went through this, and everything seems to be in accordance with what Seth and Chad wanted. Now it's up to us to pass the ordinance and put the restrictions on it.
Well, isn't it our job to come up with the restrictions and then recommend that to the, can we put the restrictions on, Mary? Or is that the village changes the zoning?
Changes the zoning, right. But then
Because
they can
the
be a
zoning
change
board
in
puts the
zoning.
restrictions on?
Well, it's kind of a package together. With the only thing that zoning does in and of itself is the variance. For
Okay.
the restrictions, that would be that there would be zoned, a change in zoning to business with these restrictions. Special use
the
permit
special use.
for the storage unit with these restrictions. So
Right.
it is part and parcel that whole package would go to the village board.
So
Not
we
the
need to
variance.
get that wording in place before we pass it through.
Correct.
And just also for procedural things, then we would make a recommendation to the village board. The village board would then determine whether to change the zoning with those restrictions and special use permit. But then would it have to come back to us to then grant a variance because we have to wait until it's zoned that? Or can we give a variance prior to it being zoned and having a special use permit?
To me, it would make sense that the variance comes after, because
Right.
if you got to change the zoning first before they even have that requirement.
So what we need to do then is we would need for you, Mary, to put all of this together,
Right.
have everyone on the zoning board review it, and the Ackermans can review it ahead of time too, to see what we're looking at. But then we have another meeting where we would actually approve the language and then vote on recommending that to the village board. We would then conclude that meeting, and then if there's a recommendation to the village board by the majority, then the village board would take it up. If they approve of the zoning change, then we'd have another zoning board meeting to then discuss any variances.
Correct.
Okay.
What
And then-
variances are we talking about? I'm getting
Well,
confused.
What I have in my listing for variances is the parking stall requirement,
Okay,
the landscape requirement for a part of it only, and then the recycled asphalt.
okay.
And then, of course, we also then have what I had originally put together and that you have now with Bill's revisions, that those things, some of which we've addressed, but others we haven't, that would be part of the special use permit. So I'm thinking I'll try to work, it won't be probably till this weekend, but that I would put together an explanation of what I believe we've come out with for the variances and the special use permit, the language I'm talking about for each of them. And then I can email that out to everyone, and then you can give feedback before we actually have the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Has anybody got anything else to offer or any questions?
No,
And when I do that, I'll send it out in Word format, just in case anybody's got any suggested changes, whether you want to redline them or however.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Frank Eubank.
Is there a second?
Cargill, second.
Roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Emmert,
Yes.
Eubank,
Yes.
Koenig,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Maderas,
Yes.
Vansickle.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thanks.
Mary, do you have my cell phone number?
I'm not positive, but I'll take it now.
815
Uh-huh.
222